All right, mean, median, mode, and range is our next unit that we're going to talk about. And this kind of goes with stem and leaf plots and line plots. So this is getting into what's called statistics, okay? So we're going to first start with the average, which is also called the mean, okay? This is what you see most often in school with your grade. Your average or the mean is a number that helps describe a set of data. It is sometimes called a measure of central tendency. We typically just say that the average is a measure of center. So if you are thinking about your grades, and you say, well, what is my average or what is my grade? Your grade is really a measure of center or a value in the middle of your lowest grade and your highest grade. So if you had a 70 as your lowest grade and a 100 as your highest grade, your average would be somewhere in between those two values. Okay. So we're going to find out how to calculate the average or the mean in just a little bit here. Okay. All of these other things are also considered averages or measures of center. Okay. So the mean, the median, and the mode are all measures of center. Okay. We use the word not necessarily the wrong way. When we say, what is my average? We can say, what is my mean? All right, we're used to saying, what is my average? So if you want to know your average, you are finding the mean of a set of data. Okay. All right. This is what we usually say when we say, what is my average? What grade do I normally get? So again, if your grades were, let me pull up another page here. Let's say your grades were a 95, a 95A, an 87B, a 92A, a 100A, and an 85B. So if you had a 95, an 87, a 92, a 100, and an 85. If you had those 5 grades right now, I'm going to rearrange them and put them in order from least to greatest. So there's my smallest. So I'm going to say 85. And it helps to put things in order from least to greatest because you have to do that if you're finding the median of a set of data, which we will talk about. And it also helps us find the mode of a set of data if there is a mode. So getting the practice or getting into the habit of putting your numbers in order from least to greatest is extremely beneficial. So we've got 85, 87, 92, 95, and 100. Those are your 5 grades. Okay, so I've got a B. I believe this is a B. Might be a B plus. A, A, A. Okay, so if my lowest grade is an 85 and my highest grade is a 100, is my average going to be an 85? No. Is my average going to be a 100? No, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. Okay, and this is what we would do to figure it out. We would add all of the grades up on our calculator. In this unit, you are allowed to use a calculator, and I do highly recommend that. All right, so I wrote these down. Let's see, we've got 85 plus 87 plus 92 plus 95 plus 100. Okay, equals 459. Now that is not my average. I have to do one more step. So I'm going to take 459 and I'm going to divide it by 5 because I had 5 grades. Okay. and my average is a 91.8, which I would round that up to a 92. Okay, so my grade, get out of here. All right, my grade would be a 91.8, or we would say my average is a 92. Okay, so it's not in the 80s, but it's also not a 100. So it's somewhere in between 85 and 100. It's not always going to be exactly in the middle of your lowest and your highest number. Your other grades are going to play a factor in your average. Okay, so that's how you find the average. You add up all the numbers in the set and you divide by how many numbers you have in the set. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next slide. It does this every time. I don't know why I have to continue to do that. All right. All right. So how is the mean of a set of numbers found? We add all the numbers in this set and then we divide that sum by the number of data or number of numbers in this set. Okay, so we're adding all the numbers together and dividing by how many numbers we have. All right. The median. The median is also a measure of center. Okay. It's the number that's in the middle of a set of numbers, but you have to put them in order from least to greatest first. That is a must. Okay. So all right, arranging the numbers in the set from least to greatest, the middle number is going to be the median, okay? Now, if you have an odd number, like say you had 7 numbers in your set, you would get exactly one number in the middle. 3 would be less than that number in the middle, and 3 would be more than that number in the middle. But what happens if you have an even number of numbers? So if you had like 6 test scores, you're going to have 3 on one side, 3 on the other. So what's going to be in the middle?
So if it was like 6 and 7, it would be 6.5.
Okay, so if you have an even number of numbers in your data set, you're going to end up having 2 numbers in the middle. Okay, and then you have to find the average of those 2 numbers, which means you're just going to add those 2 numbers together and divide by 2. All right, so we have 5 test scores, the same test scores that we had before. All right, we're going to put them in order, just like I had done on the other slide. And here they are in order. And the number that is in the center is 92. Okay, and that's actually really close to what we got as our average when we found the mean. All right, that doesn't always work out like that. So the median would be 92. Okay. But we often we don't say, that's not how we calculate your grades. Okay. We don't say, oh, here are your 13 grades for the 9 weeks. I'm going to put them in order, and whatever number is in the middle, that's your average for the quarter. That's not the way that we figure out your average. We use the mean to get your average because it's a little bit more of a accurate measure of center, or it's a better way to get an average of your grade. Okay. All right. So the middle number is the median. I like to think of the median as like if you're driving down the highway, and you've got 2 lanes on this side and 2 lanes on the other side. What is that strip of grass called in the center? It's called the median. Okay, that strip of grass that runs between the 2 highways on, if you're going like from West Point to Gloucester, that strip of grass that's in the middle, that's called the median. It's in the middle. Okay. All right. If we had 6 grades, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute. Where they're putting something else in here. 92, 94, 87. They're adding okay, so if we had 6 test scores, the 2 that would be in the center would be 92 and 94. So when you're finding the average of that, you're actually getting the halfway point between those two numbers. So 92 plus 94 is 186, and you would divide that by 2, and that would give you 93. So 93 would be considered your median. All right. The mode is the number in a data set that occurs the most often. So if these were our grades, 95, 87, 85, 100, 100, your mode is 100. Most of the time you get a 100. But that, again, is not the way that we calculate your grades. We calculate your grades based on the average or the mean. It wouldn't really be fair for us to say, oh, since you get a 100 most of the time, that's your grade. Well, you also had a 95, an 87, and an 85. Now, this set of data has one mode. You can have a set of data that has no mode at all. Okay. Let's see. Putting them in order helps figuring out the mode. Let me go back here a minute. All right. So let's say this 100 right here was a 90 and none of our grades repeated at all. We would just have no mode. Okay. Likewise, you can have more than one mode. So let's say we had two 100s, and let's say this 85 was a 95. I don't think I can't write on this. But if this 85 was a 95, you would have two 95s and two 100s, then you would have two modes. Okay. So let me show you an example. If I had an 87, a 95, 100, and 100, I would have two modes. I have two 95s and I have two 100s. So 95 and 100 would both be the mode. Okay. If I had 87, 92, 95, 98, and 100, if none of the numbers repeat, then you just have no mode. Okay. So for mode, you can have exactly one, you can have more than one, or you can have no mode at all. Okay. But mode is the one that appears the most times. Okay. And then we have, I am just going to go to range. Range is the one that is not a measure of center. So mean, median, and mode, the three that begin with the letter M, are measures of center. Range is a measure of spread. So how far spread out is your data? And the way that you calculate the range is by, you can put them in order. You don't have to put them in order, but if you do put your numbers in order, you have your biggest number and your smallest number at the front and at the back. And that's all you're doing to get the range, is you're taking your biggest number and you're subtracting the smallest number from it. Okay. So if you look at this example of test scores right here, my highest score is a 100. My lowest score is an 87. So the range is 100 minus 87, which is 13. Okay, so your range is not a measure of center. It's telling you how far spread out your data is. And we talked about the range of our numbers when we were talking about stem and leaf plots and line plots. We said if you're working with a really big range of numbers, you're not going to want to display that information on a line plot, okay? Because your line would be really, really long. If you want to make a line plot, you want to work with a set of data that has a small range of numbers. Okay. And we will call it quits there for today. Here's one more slide that just goes over the four terms again. So the mean, that's what we call our average. That's how you get your grades. You're going to add all of your numbers together and divide by how many numbers you have. The median is the middle after you put them in order from least to greatest. The mode is the one that appears the most. often. And the range is the difference between the smallest and the biggest number. They misspelled biggest right here. And that is a measure of spread. Okay. So we will continue to practice with mean, median, mode, and range next week after Thanksgiving break also. Okie dokie.